This is an example of a problem to be solved in Excel in which you're both creating a frequency table and sort of a histogram, and also calculating year measures of central tendency. And we're doing this work in Excel. I'll only use my pen to write the formulas on the side. These are data actually collected by Dene College students, and each surveyed 5 friends, and one of the questions they asked was how many children they had. So these are the number of children each of these individuals had. So you'll be learning a few new functions today. So first of all, A, we're asked to find minimum, maximum, and range. So let's use our formulas now. One thing you're going to learn as you do this formula is how to select a long row of data. And the way you do that is you place your cursor into the top cell, and then you hold Control Shift and the down arrow to select all of them. And then you hold Control plus Shift plus down arrow to select all of them. So let's go ahead and do this. Equals, to tell Excel we're using a formula, we'll just type min for minimum. If you ever forget what it was, you can see Excel offers you suggestions here, and you can see our formula is being written up here. When you get your formula this far, place your cursor in the top cell of the data that you want to find the minimum of. In this case, it's right here. Now I'm going to hold down Control Shift and push the down arrow on my keyboard. And that, as you can see, will select all of the data points and write those cell numbers in here. I've now clicked up in the function cell. You can put a closing parenthesis or you can just click Enter, and it will tell you the minimum. And as we already knew, the minimum is 0. Let's find the maximum. Equals to tell Excel we're doing a formula, and max is the command. And then we put our opening parenthesis. Once again, place your cursor in the top data cell, hold Control Shift, and then while you're holding those down, press the down arrow. Now it's selected everything till the next blank cell. Go ahead and push Enter. And we find out that the maximum number of children that anyone had was 8. Our range, we can put a formula in. It equals the maximum. Instead of typing 8, I might make a typo. I'm going to click in the cell with the 8 and subtract the cell with the 0. We could do that in our heads, but just so you get used to using these formulas. B, it says create a frequency table by inserting a pivot table. So let's just write frequency table. And we'll go ahead and we only have a range of 8, so we don't need to create any bins, but let's go ahead and look at what this pivot table does. I'll put my cursor right here. Now I'm going to go to the Insert menu, and on my screen, pivot table is on the far left. If you don't have this, you might need to search a little bit in the Help tool right up here. You can put pivot table in the bar and find out where it is. If you're using Microsoft 365, it should be here for you. So we'll insert a pivot table. It's asking you here, what range do you want your data? And so what we're going to do is select all those data again. While this is highlighted here, place my cursor in the top cell of data, hold Control Shift down arrow all at once, and that should be fine. You can hit, I think you can hit Enter, or else you can just click off of it. And then it's asking you, well, where should we put that table? That's what this is about. And it's right where I selected before, so that's good. So let's hit OK. Now this is where it looks a little bit strange. So, and actually, I'm going to redo this because you might make this very same mistake. I don't want this pivot table. So I'm going to X out of that. And I'm going to X out of this by just selecting these cells and deleting. Let's do this one more time. So I'm going to actually place my cell where it says children because it wants to know what the variable name is. And now I'm just going to select all those cells, Control Shift down arrow. I'll do that now, and now I'm going to insert the pivot table. Well, that word children is also selected, and here we can see it's got everything, including the column header. That's what we want. Now again, it's asking where. I'm going to click here, And I'm going to click right in where I want it, which is, if you see my cursor here, I'm putting it right up here. And so, whoopsie, double mistake. It's good to make these mistakes when I'm doing these demos. Make sure you click down in the cell, click existing worksheet, and then you can click in the cell where you want the table to be. So now let's click OK again and see what comes up. And it's good to run into these problems, as I've said. So let's go back one more time and select the data. And now we're telling we want it in this existing worksheet, and let's click OK. This is what we want to come up. We want it to have this variable children show up right here. Now watch carefully to see what to do with this. You can take this variable, and it's asking you, what values do you want to use? Well, we want to use all the values in that children column. But we don't want it to sum them up. We actually want it to count them. We want the frequencies. So what I've done here is I see this children here. I've dragged it down here, but it says sum. Click on there, and you'll see value field settings right here on the bottom. Click on that and just tell it count. Count those value fields and click OK. And then what do we want it to count? Drag that same variable where it says rows. So we want those number of children to be in the rows, and we want it to count how many children each have. And now you should be able to click OK just by entering. And now we've got a nice, here's the row labels. Here's the number of children. And we just have to get our percents. Now there is a more efficient way to do this, but we're going to do each one individually. You can see here that it says we have 151 individuals. You might be saying, hey, I'm pretty sure I saw 168. 151 is accurate. That means that some of the data were bad. So it's always a good idea to let Excel count how many are there for you. Now let's type our equal sign, and you'll remember percent, let's see if this is going here, percent is always the frequency divided by children. So we can go ahead and do it. So we'll type our equals, and let's click in that first frequency, and let's divide by 151. We can do this for each of them. We aren't going to use our copy paste function just now. Next, you're going to click in the cell with this 41. We're going to divide by the cell with the 151. It's always better to click in the cells because there's always a chance that you're going to make a typing error or something like that if you don't click in the cell. So you can see I'm just going down. I'm saying the equal sign. I'm clicking in the cell with the frequency. I'm dividing by the total. And that's how we're getting the percents. Later, we'll learn about a copy-paste function. For now, we're just doing each one individually. 7 divided by 151 equals 1 divided by 151 and equals 1 divided by 151. Now we have our percents. I don't like them looking this way, so I'm actually going to highlight all of those cells, right-click, and go to Format Cells. And I'm going to tell Excel, those are percents. Make them percents. I don't want any decimal places. I want nice round numbers. That looks better to me. These should add up to 100%. So I'm going to type a formula here, equals the sum. And let's sum up all of these percents, see if we did it right. And we get 100%, so things are looking good right here. All right, so we did A. I'm going to actually place my B here. So I've placed my cursor there in front. So now I know I'm done with B. Next, it says, plot the data on a bar chart and close the gap. That's what makes it look like a histogram. The reason we don't want to insert a histogram, though, is because we have discrete values here. These are the number of children. We can't have half children. So let's write, we're going to write bar chart turn to histogram. I'll just make the arrow here. So we're not using Excel to create the histogram. We're using a bar chart. Actually, what I'm going to select is this right here, the number of children. I'll just select these data. I'm not going to select the header row. I'll go to Insert, drag over here, and you'll see something that looks like this, which is your bar chart. Go ahead and click on that, and click on the very first one that appears. And you'll see that this looks much like a histogram, except for those gaps. That's why we can use it. So let's click on the cells. I'm going to click off it again, because this can be tricky sometimes. What we want is to click on it so that each bar has these little circles at its corners. Once we get that, we can hover over one of those that has the circles on its corners that's selected. Right click while you're hovering over there, and then go to Format Data Series. And all we're going to do, yours might come up like this, allowing you to change the color. It might be here, allowing you to make it fancy. We don't need either of those. What we need is this, which allows you to come up with this field gap width. Mine is by default at 219%. I just want to drag that all the way to the left till it says 0%. And you can see that now we have the equivalent of a histogram. I'll give it a nice little title here in case I have a viewer. Let's just write number of children by people in stats class. All right. So now that's done. I don't want it to be right there. I'm going to drag it down to where it belongs, right here. If you want, you can make it a little smaller so it doesn't take up so much room, whatever you need. But now you can see your homework is still looking really nice. So now we've done A, B, and C. Now we complete mean, median, mode, sum of squares, variance, and standard deviation. So let's go ahead and write D. And we're going to get mean, median, mode, sum of squares, variance, and standard deviation. And we're going to calculate all of these by hand because we're just beginning. I'll show you how to do it. So mean, there is an easy formula for doing this, but just at this early learning stage, let's do the whole formula. We know that mean is the sum of scores divided by n, where n is the number in the sample. We didn't write that down exactly, so I think I'm just going to put it right here at the bottom, n. So let's first figure out n. The formula that we're going to use is count A. Watch. Equals count A, because I'm not sure if they're appropriately numbered. Count A means count all. Put an opening parenthesis, and let's go back up here, click in the top cell of data, not the header. Hold Control-Shift down arrow, count. And let's see what we get. And we're right, we get 151, just like it was showing up here. So that's very good. Now our mean is the sum of all those scores. So let's write equals sum, put our opening parenthesis. Let's get our cursor in that top cell, hold Control-Shift down arrow. Now you could stop here and do this in two separate steps. But instead, I'm going to put my closing parenthesis. You can see right here where I'm working up in the formula bar. Next, I'm going to put the divide by sign, which is that slash, and I'm going to click in the cell with the 151. Take a look at the formula. Yours might not be exactly the same because you might be using different cells, but it should look something like this. Let's find out what the average number of children is. And for students in that class at that time, the average number of children was this number, 1.5, approximately 1.53. Now, median, we can also do a rank. In fact, let's just use the formula for median. The formula for median is equals median and then data. So let's go ahead and just use the formula. We don't want to sort all those out. It would be a lot of work. Equals median. Let's put an opening parenthesis, and you guys know how to do this now. Click in the top cell, hold Control-Shift down arrow, and hit enter. And you can see that the median score is a 1. Let's find out the mode, and let's do it the same way. The mode is the most commonly occurring number. You can probably guess the formula equals the mode. And then select all the scores, the range. So let's go ahead and type equals mode. If you don't capitalize, Excel will do that for you. Click in the top data cell, not the header. Hold Control-Shift down arrow, and you can put the closing parenthesis or just hit enter. And we can see the most commonly occurring number is 0. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because we can also see the mode right here. So if we were going to draw these on there, we would see that the mode is here. We can see that the median is here. And we can see that the mean is like right around here. And if we were going to look at which one told the best picture of the story of the students in that class, we can see that certainly median or mode tells a more accurate picture, probably median, than any of the others. Next, we calculate the sum of squares, and we know that the sum of squares is just the sum of all the deviations squared. So let's figure out our deviations. Pay attention. I'm going to show you something tricky about this. So here's our deviation, which is the same as saying x minus m. How far is each score from the mean? And did I get my x? Yes, I did. So what we're basically doing is we're taking equals, we're clicking on this one, and we're subtracting the mean, which is right here. Now, we can use a copy-paste function, but it's going to be messed up. Here's a quick way to do copy-paste of a formula like this, but we're going to have to undo it because it's going to be wrong. So first off, there's our deviation. We can see it's in the right cells because we have the number of children here and we have the mean here. So let's go ahead then and hover over this magic button, and I'm going to double-click. And I didn't quite get it, so let's do that again. Double-click. And you can see now that it's calculated a whole bunch of numbers, but they do not look right because we're supposed to be subtracting 1.53 approximately. None of these should be round numbers. So what went wrong? Well, let's click in another cell and see what happened. If we click in this cell, we can see, let's click in just the second cell. The answer should be minus 1.53, but instead we have minus 1. If we place our cursor up here, it'll highlight the cells that it worked with. It took in blue, we can see this cell, the 0 it selected right. Let's see if it selected the mean right, and it didn't. It subtracted the median. That's not right. Let's look at what happened in the third cell. We can click up here to see what it did. We can see the blue, it subtracted person 3's number of children, but here it subtracted the mode. That's not right. We want it to stay on the mean. And what we have to do to facilitate that, I'm going to click my undo button here, or you can use Control Z to undo. And let's get rid of all of that because it's wrong. We have to do something in our formula to stabilize it. What we want it to do is keep moving down this row and subtracting this person's number of children, the next, but we want it to always stay right on the cell with the mean. I don't want to type all those digits out because I'll get them wrong. And what we have to do is right between the row number and the column number, we have to put a $sign. The $sign stabilizes it. We're going to get the same answer. The answer didn't change, but now look what happens when we copy it. We could just copy it and paste it down a few cells. I used Control C to select and copy it. Now I'm going to use Control V to paste it. These numbers are looking better. Here we have 0 children minus the mean, which is 1.53 approximately, and we get minus 1.53. This is looking better. Let's see if it did the right cell. I'll click on the one I'm looking at, and now I'll click in the formula bar, and you can see it took the 0 and it subtracted the 1.53. So it stayed right there in the cell as we wanted it to. So now we should be good to copy paste the whole way down. I'm selecting this cell. I'm going to just double click right there on that magic button in the lower right corner, and it'll copy those all the way down. Let's do one last check. How about this person with 5 children minus, did it subtract the mean? And it did. There's the red highlighted around the mean. That's correct. The next thing we do is we square the deviation, and the deviation is just what we subtracted. So we're just going to click on, whoops, not there. This is the deviation squared. we're just going to click on this cell with the deviation. We're going to hit that up caret. It's the uppercase of the 6 and put 2 for squaring. Go ahead and copy that. Here we want it to go right down these row of data and square them, so we can just double click in the magic button and it'll do that all the way down. And this column right here is the one that we add up to get the sum of squares. So I'll highlight that yellow so we don't lose it. So now we can get our sum of squares. So let's go ahead and go equals sum, put our opening parenthesis, click in that top row of data in the yellow, hold Control-Shift down arrow all at once, and hit enter. That's our sum of squared deviations. Our variance, you'll recall, when we have all of the data that we're working with, it's just SS divided by N. So let's go ahead and take equals. I don't want to type all this number out. I'll make a mistake. So let's click there, and then let's divide and click on the cell with N. And we get the variance. And then to get the standard deviation, we just take the square root of the variance, and we end up getting, and there we go. We should have our standard deviation of 1 point, whatever that says there, 62679, etc. And that looks about right to me. So that should be good. We have now done D, and let's go on to E. We're asking again, given the shape and any outliers, it looks like our 8, 7, and 8 might be kind of far into the tail, but let's go ahead and put E. We see that this is a skewed distribution. Median is the best measure of central tendency. And I'll just jump down to the next line here because the distribution is skewed. And that's the end of that problem.